The letterhead on the document said Whitmore and Associates, which was weird because Whitmore and Associates was my lawyer, and this letter was from my husband's lawyer. Same name, same address, same Gerald Whitmore. Marcus and I got married when I was 28. One Tuesday in March, we sat at the kitchen table and divvied things up on the back of an electric bill. The house to me, his business equity to him, split the savings 50-50. About 140,000 in that account. A nurse I worked with, Deborah, recommended a divorce lawyer, Gerald Whitmore. Her sister had used him. Straightforward guy, Deborah said. I wasn't looking for a shark. I just needed someone to turn our napkin math into legal documents. Gerald's office was on East Boulevard. Leather chairs, framed diplomas, the whole bit. He was mid-50s, silver hair, firm handshake. Looked like someone who'd done this 1,000 times. He reviewed our agreement and said he could have papers ready in 2 weeks. Retainer was $5,000. I paid it. 2 weeks came and went. Then a month. Every time I called, his paralegal, Trish, said he was finalising details. I wasn't in a rush. Divorces take time. Then Marcus called me one night, furious. Your lawyer is asking for 70% of the savings, and he wants the house appraised so you get a bigger cut. I hadn't asked for any of that. I called Gerald the next morning, and he said he was protecting my interests. I told him I wanted 50-50, like we'd agreed. He said fine. A week later, I got a letter in the mail from Marcus's attorney on Whitmore and Associates letterhead. I sat at my kitchen table reading that letter over and over, like if I stared at it long enough, the words would rearrange themselves into something that made sense. Marcus's lawyer was Gerald Whitmore. My Gerald Whitmore. Same man, same office. I called Marcus. When did you hire Gerald? A couple months ago, right after you. He said he could handle both sides since we weren't fighting over anything. He never told me that. Not in the initial consultation, not in 6 meetings, not in dozens of emails. In North Carolina, in every state, that's a conflict of interest bad enough to end careers. You can represent both sides in a divorce, technically, but only with full written disclosure and consent from both parties. Gerald never disclosed, never asked for consent. But it got worse. I pulled all my financial records and compared them to the proposals Gerald had been floating. He'd been inflating things on both ends. Told me Marcus was hiding business income. Told Marcus I was padding expenses. Every manufactured dispute meant more motions, more filings, more billable hours. My $5,000 retainer had been gone for weeks. I'd paid another $8,000 on top of it. Marcus was in for over 15. $28,000 between us for a divorce we'd already settled on the back of an envelope. I drove to Gerald's office that afternoon, sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes with the engine running. My hands were shaking. I wanted to walk in and scream at him, actually pictured it, rehearsed what I'd say. But I didn't go in. Partly because I knew screaming wouldn't help. Partly because I was afraid I'd start crying and I didn't want to give him that. Instead, I went home and looked up how to file a complaint with the North Carolina State Bar. I could have filed it that night. The form was right there online. But I'd seen enough in the ER to know that acting on adrenaline usually means missing something. I gave myself a week. That week, I requested my complete client file from Gerald's office. He was legally required to provide it. Trish sent over a stack of documents, and buried in the middle, I still don't know if this was carelessness or conscience, were internal notes from Marcus's file. Things like, Client S believes 50-50, push for appraisal to increase billables, and Client M responsive to urgency, suggest forensic accounting. He'd written it down. He'd actually written down his strategy for milking us. I made copies, backed them up on a thumb drive and emailed them to myself. Then I called Marcus. This was the part I wasn't sure about. We were getting divorced. We weren't exactly on great terms. There'd been some real tension in the last couple months, arguments over money that I now understood Gerald had manufactured. Marcus could have told me to deal with it myself. He was quiet for a long time after I explained what I'd found. How long? He asked. Since the beginning. Since before we signed the retainers. More silence. Then, I'll send you everything I have. We weren't friends. We weren't going to be friends. But we agreed on one thing. I found a new attorney named Helen Park, former prosecutor, now doing legal malpractice. I sat in her office with my folder of evidence, expecting her to be impressed, or at least interested. She was mostly sceptical, read through things slowly, asked questions I didn't have answers to, pointed out things that might not hold up. Internal notes aren't always admissible the way clients think they are, she said, and dual representation isn't automatically illegal if he can argue he had verbal consent. He didn't, I said. I believe you, but he'll say he did. We need more. That was discouraging. I'd walked in thinking I had a slam dunk, and walked out with homework. Helen wanted a complete timeline, every email between Gerald and both of us, bank statements showing the escalating fees, and ideally any other clients who'd had the same experience. Finding other clients was the hard part. I couldn't exactly take out an ad. I spent 3 weeks looking through public court records for divorces where Whitmore and Associates appeared on both sides. Most records don't make that easy to search. I spent entire evenings after 12-hour shifts scrolling through the Mecklenburg County Clerk's database. I found 2 cases, called both couples. One couple, the Nwins, were furious and had suspected something was wrong, but didn't know how to prove it. They'd paid Gerald a combined $62,000 for a divorce that should have cost maybe $8,000. The other couple didn't want anything to do with it. I just want to forget that whole year of my life, the woman told me. Fair enough. But she gave me a written statement, which Helen said was something. Helen and I filed the bar complaint. 12 pages, 47 exhibits. Marcus filed a separate one. The Wins filed their own. 3 complaints, same lawyer, documented pattern. Then Helen filed the malpractice suit. Fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, unjust enrichment. She wanted to recover our fees plus damages. The Wins joined. During discovery, Gerald's billing records for the past 5 years came out. Same pattern in at least 2 more cases. Dual representation, no disclosure, manufactured conflict, inflated billing. Helen tried to contact those clients. One joined the suit. The other had moved out of state and couldn't be reached. Gerald's insurance company pushed for settlement. His own defense attorney requested a meeting. I want to say the meeting felt like a victory, but mostly it felt exhausting. Me, Marcus, Helen, Gerald, his lawyer, all in a conference room on a grey Tuesday. Gerald looked older than I remembered. His lawyer did all the talking, offered to refund our fees in full. Helen put the billing records from the other cases on the table. Your client has been doing this for years. We have multiple families. We're happy to go to trial. They asked for a break. Came back in half an hour. The settlement was $287,000, split among the plaintiffs. Marcus and I each got about 48 after Helen's cut. Not life-changing money, but it covered what Gerald had taken and then some. The State Bar investigated for 4 months. Gerald Whitmore was disbarred. Not suspended, his license was permanently revoked. The published opinion mentioned a pattern of deliberate dual representation and fabrication of disputes for financial gain. The Mecklenburg County DA charged him with fraud. He pled to 2 misdemeanors, got probation and community service. His office on East Boulevard closed. Trish called me afterward. She said she'd suspected something for a while, that she'd been the one who put those internal notes in my file. She didn't say whether it was on purpose or not. I didn't ask. Marcus and I finalised our divorce 3 months later. 2 meetings with Helen. $2,400 total. 50-50, just like we'd written on that electric bill. We don't talk much anymore. I sent him a text when the bar decision came through and he sent back a thumbs up. That felt about right. We were never going to be the kind of exes who become best friends. We were just 2 people who got screwed by the same guy and decided to do something about it. The Charlotte Observer ran the story. Gerald Whitmore is now the first result when you Google divorce lawyer fraud Charlotte. I look it up sometimes when I'm having a bad day. Not because it makes me happy exactly, just because it reminds me that doing something is better than doing nothing, even when doing something is exhausting and uncertain and takes way longer than you want it to. Subscribe, new story every week.